Please take your seats. The meeting is about to begin. Remember to speak into the microphone, as this meeting is being recorded for public record. Please stand by. We are going on air in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Okay, good morning, everyone, and welcome to this specially set July 28th Planning Board meeting. We have everybody but Yashil Cement today, so we're good on a quorum. And I'll start, if I could just, the July meeting was, earlier meeting was canceled, so we still need to approve the June 10 minutes from our prior meeting. If someone can move to approve those.
I'll move it.
Okay, can I get a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right, Mr. Nick.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. Today's meeting of the Planning Board will be conducted in a hybrid format with the board physically present in the commission chambers at Miami Beach City Hall and applicant, staff, and members of the public appearing either in person or virtually via Zoom. To participate virtually in today's meeting, the public may dial 1-877-853-5257 and enter the webinar ID, which is 861-4342-6327#, or log into the Zoom app and enter the webinar ID, which again is 861-4342-6327. Anyone wishing to speak on an item must click the raise hand icon in the Zoom app or dial *9 if they're participating by phone. If you're appearing on behalf of a business, a corporation, or another person, you need to register as a lobbyist with the City Clerk's office. If you haven't registered yet, you should register before you speak to the board. You don't have to register as a lobbyist if you're speaking only on behalf of yourself and not any other party, or if you're testifying as an expert witness providing only scientific, technical, or other specialized information or testimony in this public meeting, or if you're appearing as a representative of a neighborhood association without any compensation or reimbursement for your appearance, to express support of or opposition to any item. Expert witnesses and representatives of neighborhood associations shall, prior to appearing, disclose in writing to the City Clerk their name, address, and the principal on whose behalf they're communicating. If you're an architect, attorney, or employee representing an applicant or an objector, you must register as a lobbyist. These rules apply whether you're appearing in favor of or against an item, or encouraging or arguing against its passage, defeat, modification, or continuance. Since we have no quasi-judicial item applications on today's agenda, there's no need to swear anyone in.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, as Nick mentioned, everything is a new comprehensive plan or code amendment today. So we will start with Planning Board File 250768, floor area increase temporary moratorium.
And board members may remember we did email this to you separately from the packages last Thursday. We did pass around a printed copy for today's meeting just for your reference. So as proposed, this FAR moratorium would apply to the adoption of comprehensive plan or land development regulation amendments by the City Commission that include a floor area ratio increase above the maximum FAR currently allowed in any of the city's zoning districts, if the application will result in an increase of more than 5,000 square feet per property or site. This ordinance does not apply, or this moratorium does not apply to the receipt or processing of applications by the plan department. So someone could still submit an application that is proposing to increase the FAR for a site or a district. However, the City Commission, if the ordinance is adopted by them, would be deciding to temporarily delay their review of the ordinance. It would allow the process to continue until it got to them. However, this ordinance does allow that requirement to be waived by a 6/7 vote of the City Commission. They felt it was an ordinance that increases FAR that was beneficial to the city. So even with this moratorium in place, the City Commission could vote by 6/7 vote to take action on such an ordinance. Part of the reason for this proposed moratorium is to review the impacts of other pending FAR increases. You may remember we had Washington Avenue was approved for a pending increase by the Planning Board. That is still at the City Commission level. We have the Lincoln Road East and West, which was reviewed by the Planning Board. That is still pending review by the City Commission. This would not stop those processes. It would just suspend the process for future amendments.
So anything that's already ongoing is not affected?
Correct. And part of the purpose for this suspension is that the City Commission has expressed concern with impacts on traffic, municipal services, public infrastructure such as stormwater and floodwater management, potable water and sanitary sewer systems. So the idea is that with this, in this time frame, the city commission would take a look in a more comprehensive review of what these impacts would have on parts of the city or citywide where they've been proposed. So with that, we are recommending, and this as well, this would, moratorium would last from today with a positive recommendation of the board until January 31st of next year. It would not affect any application that is for affordable or workforce housing units. And we are recommending that the planning board transmit this to the city commission with a favorable recommendation.
Okay, I know you're here to speak on this. So just out of curiosity, are people on Zoom?
We do have people on Zoom, but with their hand raised, yes, a few people,
Okay,
yes.
I always treat customers in the store first, so.
And Mr. Chairman, before we open to the public, I just want to make a couple of comments on this ordinance. I've gotten some correspondence from board members and interested individuals in as to how this ordinance has been impacted by recent changes in state law. And there are two state laws in particular. One is the 2025 amendments to the Live Local Act, which include restrictions on moratoria adopted at the local level. And I wanted to just.
So in other words, this would be preempted by that.
Well, it wouldn't be preempted by that, but I wanted to explain why for the record. The restriction in the Live Local Act applies to building moratoria on essentially on Live Local projects, on workforce housing projects that are submitted under the Live Local Act. And what the act allows is a local government to impose a moratorium on such projects for a very limited period of time. It's no more than 90 days in a 3-year period. But this is not that. This ordinance does not prevent the development of a project that is currently allowable under the land development regulations. It does not prevent the development of a Live Local project submitted pursuant to state law. All it applies to is legislative changes to increase allowable FAR in any of the city's zoning districts. So it doesn't stop development that's currently allowed under our code. The other change.
Go ahead. Let me
You have a question about that one? Yeah.
Well, currently, what would the process be without the moratorium? Just for our own edification.
For an FAR increase?
Yeah.
A private application would need to be submitted
Right.
to the planning board. The planning board has very recently heard 2 such applications. One was for 1250 West Avenue, and the other was for the Deauville, the North Beach overlay.
Right.
It requires, now our code requires 2 readings before the planning board with a community workshop in between, and 2 readings before the city commission with a second community workshop in between.
Okay. In light of that, I want to make sure I understand what the reason is for the positive recommendation or the suggestion from staff that it be sent positively. I just want to make sure, because it seems like you're just taking.
I think this is more like a public notice. The city commission is concerned with the FAR increases and let people know that there's going to be a pause in the review before the city commission. And realistically, right now, well, just later, we do have an application that's on the agenda for September for a specific site to increase FAR. This doesn't affect that because it's already in process.
Right, but
that
ultimately,
would
the
require-
commission, we have to approve, and the commission has to approve it.
No, the planning board doesn't have to approve it. We
No.
can recommend,
I agree. We give a recommendation, then the commission's got to approve it.
correct.
So it's kind of taking the power away from, I don't know, okay, all right. I
But
understand.
right now, the time frame. So this, just in terms of the time frame, we have an application for September. That'll be the first reading by the planning board. Then it'll be a public workshop if it's looked at in September and October. There'll be the second planning board in November. So that item won't get to city commission anyway until January. So in the end, this doesn't really affect anything that's already in process, and anything that's submitted after that will go to the city commission after the moratorium has ended.
Right. Okay, Nick, sorry, go ahead to your second point.
Yes, But how is the time used during this moratorium? Like, so if we're pausing this, what are you guys doing with that time that we're going to be feeling like there's progress into, a reason to be doing this? So we just need to make sure that this is well-used time.
So my understanding is that the city commission would engage in a consultant to review the capacity for the areas that have been mentioned to make sure that we do have capacity for, I think the problem has been most recently for sanitary systems, stormwater, things of that nature, traffic.
And the city feels that within the 6 months moratorium, you guys could be getting the information and the facts, and we'll be able to have a good analysis of that?
I believe so.
Yeah. Sorry, Nick.
Nick, go ahead.
The other change in state law that this one did impact the ordinance before you, and we revised the ordinance for today's meeting to conform with the recent change. But the second law I wanted to cover is Senate Bill 180, which was adopted during this year's legislative session and is for the most part related to disaster preparation and recovery. There are provisions in Senate Bill 180, however, that are extremely broad and that impact the city's ability to regulate growth. And one particular provision which prohibits local governments from adopting any more restrictive or burdensome amendment to our comprehensive plans or land development regulations than what was previously in place. And the bill is retroactive to August 1st of 2024 and essentially imposes a 3-year prohibition through October 1 of 2027 on any more restrictive or burdensome land development regulation amendment or comprehensive plan amendment. So we're looking at this closely. We're evaluating each proposed amendment that is wherever it may be in the process. This particular ordinance, as it was originally drafted, would have also prohibited the acceptance or review of an application to amend the LDRs to provide for additional FAR, because a property owner would have a right, let's say before this is adopted, a right to submit an application for a private application for an FAR increase. That in effect would be a more restrictive land development regulation. So we've revised the ordinance to comply with Senate Bill 180 so that applications could still be submitted, but that the City Commission is not going to consider any legislative changes that increase FAR during the moratorium period. We're confident that as revised, that this ordinance is consistent with Senate Bill 180, but I wanted the record to be clear as to why.
Okay. All right, Matthew.
Okay. Good morning, members of the Planning Board. My name is Matthew Goltanoff. My address is 125 Jefferson Avenue, and I'm speaking this morning as a private resident of this city. First, it's great to be back here. I was sitting in, I think, Jonathan's seat where he is now just a few months ago before my term concluded, and I very much enjoyed the service and was honored to serve on this board. So thank you for allowing me to come today and to speak on this topic. This one is extremely important. The City Commission spent many hours, many special commission meetings discussing FAR increases for certain projects in the city, and last month they approved 2 projects, one project which you all in your advisory role actually voted down. I would urge you all to vote down this one as well, because it is theatrics only. It has no bearing on anything. They can, as was described, they can waive these at any rate if they wish to. All the projects that were approved were required to submit infrastructure analysis, which showed that they would not impact it, and any future FAR increases also would be required to submit such increases. So again, just to wrap it up, this is bad policy, I think, and I don't think that you all need to be involved in it. just take your role in advising the commission, vote it down, and let's try to find ways to truly help the housing situation in the city. Over 60% of South Beach and North Beach residents are renters. There have been, well, actually, can I ask a question? Have there been any FAR increases for multifamily rental properties in the last, or rental projects in the last 5-10 years?
Not that I'm aware of.
So there you go. I mean, the crux of the issue is that this is a renting town, renting city, and nothing has been done. And here we are, here you are considering a piece of theatrics. So vote it down. Thank you so much. It's great to be here again.
Thank you. All right, Zoom.
We have Cecilia Torres Toledo.
Ms. Toledo?
Good morning, everyone. Cecilia Torres Toledo, Ackerman LLP, offices at 98 Southeast 7th Street, here on behalf of Ambassador Paul Cejas. As Michael Belush noted, we're going to be on the agenda for September, and we're one of the applications that would be grandfathered in. Mr. Cejas is proposing the Urban Core legislation, which proposes minimum FAR increases, which are intended so that the project can realize density. CD3 has a density of 150 dwelling units per acre, which is the highest in Miami Beach, but the current FAR and height allowances for this property don't allow you to realize those units because you run out of FAR before you're able to reach density. As you know, this code has minimum and average unit size requirements that need to be complied with. So we are requesting a 0.5 FAR increase so that we can better realize the density that's already afforded to CD3. And we're very excited to present this project to you next month. I think here my goal and my purpose in speaking today is to encourage you to recommend against this legislation because it shuts the door to proposals such as Mr. Cejas' proposals, which are reasonable, contextual, and will help the housing inventory in the city. Right now, the only projects that are penciling out are ultra luxury projects, right? Because they have low unit counts. And if we want to have housing that is accessible for different percentages of the population in Miami Beach that are accessible for young families and professionals, then we need to allow developers to realize the density that is allowed under the code. And this moratorium shuts the door on creative proposals that are in the best interest of residents as well as developers. And it's going to force people into considering live local projects because that's the only other avenue that is available to them if you shut the door on legislation that proposes FAR increases. So again, this application that we would be presenting is grandfathered. You would still be able to hear it in September, even if you recommend in favor of this, but we encourage you to recommend against it because it's not helpful to anyone. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And that concludes our public comment.
Okay. All right. Keith, I think you have some
Well,
thoughts.
I don't often agree with Matthew Gutenoff, but when I do, I'm going to use a term of language that I've never used before because I never understood it. I'm of a different generation, but I think it applies here, and that's called fake hustle. This is cover for those 6 commissioners who did not listen to the planning board nor staff. And if you'd give me a second, I'd like to read something. On March 4th, my very first planning board session, we had in front of us 1250 West. In the review criteria, 1, whether the proposed change is consistent and compatible with the comprehensive plan and any applicable neighborhood or redevelopment plans, not consistent. As currently proposed, the amendments far exceed the maximum FAR in the comprehensive plan. Whether the proposed change would create an isolated district unrelated to adjacent neighborhoods, not consistent. Proposed amendment creates an isolated overlay district that bears no relationship or consistency with surrounding context. Whether the change suggested is out of scale with the needs of the neighborhood, not consistent. And again, over and over and over again, we voted no I watched Mr. Mooney, who is in charge of the planning department, articulate very carefully, and they did all the analysis, the massing, the traffic studies, and said that FAR should not exceed 4.75, which was uber generous. And I did not see one of the 6 commissioners explain why, while the height went down nominally from 380 to 330, they left the FAR alone. What needs to happen, what we need is an ordinance to fix the commissioners. I'm sorry, but this is ridiculous. You know, you want to ignore your planning department. 1 point FAR. I mean, we give 0.25, 0.5 as bonuses for a lot of things. This is an unjustified FAR that went against everything that the planning is there for, and you voted for it. And now, after you vote for it, you want a moratorium that, as many say, is not helpful and is political cover, and I vote no.
Okay, Scott?
I'm still trying to figure out exactly, with the change that you made to sort of not be contrary to Senate Bill 180, I'm still trying to figure out how this is going to make a difference. In other words, with that amendment where basically private application can still move forward, obviously now the process still is going to be a multi-month project or process, so it's probably going to take at least 6 months to go through. So those projects can still move through, and then when the moratorium ends, you know, the commission would hear it. So, I mean, maybe you can explain it, but I don't see, whether or not we pass this or not, I don't see how it would change anything. I just don't see, am I missing something?
What it would change is that during the period of the moratorium, that the city commission would not consider any new legislation that increases FAR.
But at this point right now, with any projects already in the process, I mean, what do you foresee as the earliest that one of those would get through the current process for an FAR increase and make it to the commission?
Right now, January.
Which is
When it ends.
when this ends
It
anyway.
may,
Fake hustle.
anybody else coming in would be probably looking at February or
Yeah,
afterwards.
so basically, this is not really going to, I mean, to me, the only thing this would prevent is the commission itself from sponsoring an FAR increase. But actually, it would still go through the process, so, yeah, I mean, yeah, I guess, I just don't see anything that this is really gonna do, other than more of a, you used fake hustle, more of a, I could come up with other terms,
Other
but,
terms.
Got it.
yeah,
Cover.
yeah.
Hey, Jonathan?
I guess I have a question of, I understand what it's been said that the purpose of this is, but what is the downside to this? Is there a negative to passing this and putting this on the books? I mean, I think at a minimum, I've gotten, an onslaught of emails from residents who are in support of this. Maybe they don't know the full impact of it or whatnot, but clearly there's an intent, or a sentiment by residents that they want something like this. There's obviously that sentiment by some commissioners since this was put on the books. And so I think, I guess if there is a downside to this, I'd like to hear it. If not,
Or the vice versa, is there a downside not to?
that's what I meant. Is there a downside is there a downside to passing this or not passing this? But for right now, I think it's, one of the things that it does, if this were to pass through us, is to explain to developers and to the community how we feel that we all, residents don't necessarily want more FAR increases and development, and this at a minimum sends a message that this is what Miami Beach wants in terms of a pause. Now I understand it's not as big of a pause that most people would like, or any pause for that matter, but at least it sends a message. But I'm curious, is there any downside to having this legislation pass?
I can respond to part of your question. I worked with the sponsor on this legislation, and the purpose of the ordinance is, the stated purpose, is to preserve the status quo while we review the impacts of these recently adopted FAR increases on traffic, municipal services, and public infrastructure, including stormwater, the supply of potable water, and sanitary sewer systems. So the intent here is that during the pause, that the city will engage in a study of our infrastructure, and that will inform the city's analysis and recommendation, and ultimately the city commission's vote on FAR increases after the pause. So that's really the intent of the ordinance. The other thing I wanted to advise the board is that the sponsor has requested that the ordinance be amended to remove the 6/7 waiver provision. So if the board ultimately transmits this ordinance, we'll include that change.
Can I ask a question on unintended consequences? I meant to bring that up, and I'm posing this. Unintended consequence is that developers say, okay, I have this path, it's blocked for a little while. Of course, they could wait. But the other is that it will shine a bright light on Live Local, and they will start applying more aggressively for Live Local permission, because it doesn't require this review. You cannot put a moratorium on any Live Local act. And it may drive some developers to explore it when they wouldn't have.
I don't understand why we have to go through a moratorium to be doing a comprehensive analysis or study of what the city can handle in development. So I just don't understand why we're putting this fake pause when we should be doing that anyways, right? Whether this moratorium's in place or not. I think we're responding right now. This is responding to the backlash we've had from a lot of residents who want to see some sensible development, which is completely fair that the city has to take those steps. But I don't think that we need to go through a moratorium to be doing that study.
Right. Those are my sentiments, and I just think what's in place, the safeguards that are in place, to me are sufficient, and this really doesn't change it, in my opinion. So.
And Mr. Chair, also I feel like this sort of says the city doesn't have the ability to control itself. I mean, maybe that's a little intense, but I feel like these are things that we should be doing all along.
These boards are in place for it.
Exactly, and I also think that that we don't have a very active market right now. We have a very quiet market, and I think that if we don't give some sort of something, and that will stop all development. That's just my thoughts.
Let me jump in, because I mentioned that it really doesn't do anything. The only way I would actually consider it, and I don't know if it runs afoul of state law, but if the moratorium was a year, that would actually give the city a good amount of time to do some kind of analysis on infrastructure and things like that, and it would be a little bit more. It would actually do something then, but I don't know if there's a will to do that. I don't know if that runs afoul of state law, but that's one way I would consider this.
Scott, let me ask you also, don't you feel like that these are things that we should be considering all along, that these are, every development has to submit a traffic study and infrastructure impact study, all of these things. I mean, I think I listened to the commission meeting last week, and they said something, why are we having all these studies? Why are we having these consultants? Why are we doing all these things? It's, these are the city's jobs. And I don't, has a consultant been engaged? Has someone been engaged? I mean, how long does that take? I mean, these are legitimate questions that I think that, those are just more thoughts.
Kicking it back to Nick, is that I guess that everybody's sort of wondering, those stated purposes of it, I think everybody's in favor of doing those things, but why do we need the moratorium to do those? Like, what was the intent of this legislation? You know, what was the need for the pause for that?
It seems very reactive to, again, to the
Right.
last couple of projects that went through.
I think the idea behind the moratorium is really a legislative position to say the city commission is not going to consider or adopt anything during that period, right? Because absent this piece of legislation, I mean, it's not really formalized. The other thing I would add, just in response to a question or comment Scott had, is that the ordinance is as drafted would go through January. It could be extended. It's been drafted to allow the city commission to extend it. But certainly, if that's something that the board is inclined to recommend, you could include that as part of your
I
recommendation.
think we would need to understand the consequence of extending. I think there's
Why don't we-
a different layer of issues that come
I'd like to ask Alex, who's not on the line, why don't we go to the root cause? We have a planning department, we have a planning board, we have staff that makes recommendations based on all the criteria that you just talked about. Massing, traffic, sewer, does it fit the community? And yet they still voted 6-7 against what you recommended. How about an ordinance that justifies why they do that? We're not fixing the core problem. If developers get whatever they want, which is what's upsetting people, then this is nothing more than some kind of save the residents from the Commission Act. But why can't we have rules and ordinances that make it more difficult than just a vote for someone to override the planning director and the planning board on FAR? Is that not something that could be crafted?
I mean, I think ultimately, the planning board is our local planning agency, right? So your review is required by law of any amendment to the comprehensive plan or land development regulations. Ultimately, the city commission is the governing body of the city, right? So the city commission has legislative authority to adopt legislation or not.
Can't we impose upon them written justification, their analysis of overriding massing studies and traffic studies? At least have them put it in writing instead of just voting?
I think that, this discussion this is a policy discussion, right? What you have before you
Well,
is
this
a piece of
moratorium is a policy.
And the planning board is well within its authority to make recommendations.
All right, so that's for a discussion item, so maybe we'll put that as a discussion item, but let's go ahead and, if you guys are ready, can we vote on this one?
Yes, I vote no.
Your point is well taken. It's kind of giving, more deference to the planning board, but I don't know if we can do that, but.
Well, not planning board, actually the planning commission,
Well, both.
the staff reports.
Well, it's both, you're right, because we
Yeah.
obviously make recommendations.
Mr. Rooney
but-
gets up
Not
there.
even going to that extent, I just think that there's, getting some studies done that we can, that to educate all of us and the commission, and better understanding some of the impact, because we try to make the best decision with the knowledge we have, but I think an updated study would help us understand some of the impact of the decisions we're making, and that's the same thing for the commission, and we've talked about that with, our ex-mayor who's a lobbyist here.
Neeson.
He referred, he referenced that a few months ago, saying there's a lack of education that we're not getting that they used to get in the planning board, and so there is a regular updating for us to understand some of these issues, and I think that would be a good starting point. That doesn't require,
Excellent.
Yeah.
I had even said earlier that to Nick that I just didn't think that we had enough information.
Right. All right, you want to call the vote, Michael?
Yeah.
Is there a motion then to transmit this with a negative recommendation?
Yeah, I would like to propose a negative.
Okay, can I get a second?
I'll second that.
Okay.
I'll do a roll call. Mr. Frieden, this would be for a negative recommendation.
For a negative, yes.
So a yes vote is a negative recommendation.
Yes.
Ms. Latone?
Yes.
Mr. Needleman?
Yes.
Mr. Elias?
Yes.
And Mr. Marks?
Yes.
It's unanimous.
And Miss Beatty.
I'm sorry.
Although I
Sorry about
second it,
that.
but,
Thank you. So the board has transmitted this with a negative recommendation to the city commission.
Yeah, and what's important is the public needs to understand this wasn't a vote against your sensitivities to increase FAR. I hope everyone followed the discussion, understands that. Okay, the next one is Planning Board File 250747, vendor appointments and land use boards. Seems like a pretty no-brainer.
And I do have some questions on this, though.
This is on page 11 of the board packages. I'll just go through it quickly, and then Nick is here to answer any questions. So what this ordinance would do is amend the terms of office for the city's land use boards beginning September 1st of this year. And individuals who are vendors to the city, principals or employees of such vendors, cannot be appointed to the city's land use board. This would include the planning board, design review board, historic preservation board, and board of adjustment. They cannot be appointed during the term that a vendor contract is in place and for 1 year after its termination. Applicants to the land use boards would be required to verify that they have not been a vendor or associated one in the past year. And if they or their entity becomes a vendor during their term, they would automatically trigger a resignation from the board. This does allow the city commission to waive this requirement by 5/7 vote. And for purpose of this section, a vendor is defined as anyone doing business directly with a city or receiving city funds, excluding those with total business or grant dealings with the city are $10,000 or less per fiscal year, do not require city commission approval. We are recommending that the planning board transmit this to the city commission with a favorable recommendation. Dick, if you want to add anything?
No, I think you covered it.
I just had a couple of questions.
is there anyone on Zoom for
Oh, yeah.
comments? Just sorry.
There is no one on Zoom with their hand raised.
All right, sorry.
Are there any vendors, are there any people on any of the land use boards right now that do business with the city?
I'm not
Are there
aware.
any relatives, are there any of those types of situations where there could be a potential conflict?
I am not aware of anyone on any of the land use boards right now who is a vendor of the city.
I have a question on that. During the pandemic, when the city was, tenants can apply for aid to help with rent. One of my tenants came to me, she wanted to do that. And for me to get that rent, I had to become a vendor for the city. Obviously, that's way below the $10,000 number on here. But, moving forward, how would that go if there's some other kind of program the city has? Maybe they're helping with rent, tenants with rent, and maybe a landlord has a number of tenants that are collecting, and it does get to that or meet that level, that $10,000 level. How would that preclude that person from sitting on a land use board?
Well, if the grant were, as you pointed out, if the grant were in the amount of $10,000 or less, there would be no issue. If in a fiscal year, if the grant were over $10,000, then the board member or applicant for appointment to a city board could request a waiver from the city commission on a 5/7 vote.
Okay.
So there are no, say, on design review board, there are no employees or anything like that of any city vendors or any, I feel like there might.
The only one that could be is there is a member of the design review board who applied for a private property adaptation grant from the city's environment and sustainability department. I don't know that on its own it probably does make the board member a vendor depending on the dollar amount.
Okay. How does that get determined? I mean, do you just, how would we know something like that?
Really on a case-by-case basis. So as part of the application process, and a resident would need to state whether they are currently a vendor of the city or have been a vendor within the 1 year period preceding their application. So we would have to, like anything else in our ethics regulations, we would have to look at this on a case-by-case basis.
Okay.
So One question in terms of the definition of vendor. There's people who serve on nonprofit boards, and nonprofits regularly are grantees from the city. I can think of, I was on a board previously and we received a grant, I think it was in excess of $10,000 to put up a website, provide LGBT services. And would that then preclude that person who's sitting on a nonprofit board, had nothing to do with this, in the typical sense of a vendor, but they received a grant from the city? What's the impact of that?
This would likely apply to a grantee or an employee. You said you were a board member.
Right.
We would have to look at on a case-by-case basis. Is it a director or an officer? Is it a CEO? But it would likely apply to a grantee, again, depending on the dollar threshold.
And then, and I guess that's a question, putting my situation aside, because I'm no longer on the board, so it doesn't really matter, but, I imagine many people on land use boards are involved with, the beach concerts, or involved in the band shell, or whatever it may be, who, the Aaron C. show that may receive grants from the city to be put on, they may be a member of that board. I mean, I think that can be problematic, because we're all very involved in the community, and you want to encourage people to be involved in the community, but then you don't want, just because they're a board member of, say, Miami Beach Pride. Miami Beach Pride probably, I don't know, but I assume they receive grants from the city, and I don't know whether they exceed $10,000, but that to automatically have that person resign from a land use board, I think is a little harsh. And so, I guess I'm curious. I think there should be some sort of carve out for if somebody's on a nonprofit board, of some sort. I just don't think that they should be kicked off of a land use board.
Didn't he
What was
say
this?
it was, oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
Didn't he say that it was, if you're, whatever your position is, like if you're the CEO or the executive director or something like that? I mean, if you're just a volunteer, I mean, does that necessarily?
I can answer that. So the ordinance as drafted would apply to a vendor or a principal or employee of a vendor city.
What brought this on, Nick? Like, were we having any concerns or issues that got our commissioners to decide that this was a priority?
I think the intent behind this regulation is to further strengthen the city's standards of conduct for board members. There was a discussion when this first came up at the city commission about which, should it apply to all city boards. Ultimately, the city commission referred an ordinance to the planning board to focus only on the 4 land use boards, which are the Board of Adjustment, the Design Review Board, the Historic Preservation Board, and the Planning Board.
I mean, I think it's wise to make sure that we don't have people that compete in conflicts making the decisions, right? So I just, as the rest of the group here, we're just trying to make sure that there's no unintended consequences for some of some board members who may not have a truly financial conflict, but more just where they're volunteering and putting their time.
Exactly.
Right?
And one last question. In terms of timeframes, if you've been a vendor, I guess you're using a 1-year time frame. So if somebody receives a grant, whether it's an organization or someone directly, if a year, is it 1 year after that money's received that they are considered no longer a vendor?
It's 1 year after the contract's termination or expiration.
But if there's no contract, I'm guessing somebody received a grant. Let's say somebody has a building, they received a grant to fix up the facade of the building.
Those grant agreements have a term.
Those have a term?
Yeah.
Okay, okay.
Anybody else? Someone want to move it
I'll move it
favorably?
favorably.
I'll second it.
Okay.
I like it.
Can we do this all in favor? Anyone opposed to that?
No, but I'm in favor of it. I just think that there should be clarifying language about board members of a nonprofit organization
non-paid board members. The intent is that if you're getting money,
Right.
you
Right.
may direct your vote in a
Well, I think there might
favorable
still be a
direction.
conflict of interest that, we would learn of and they would be precluded from voting if there's an issue of there. The issue, I guess, defining a principal of a city vendor is a board member or even a board chair, a principal of an organization. I think I mean,
I think that's the
I think
intent.
if you would like to include a recommendation along those lines, that's within the board's authority. So
fine.
if you
That's fine.
yeah.
So is the idea that that a principal for purposes of this ordinance would not include volunteers or volunteer board members? Is that what you're?
Correct.
Okay.
Well, let me, there is and I'm going to use a real example. We had a guy that was the head of a nonprofit board of the MDPL, and he made well over 100,000 a year.
Well,
And-
we can say
and wouldn't he be?
uncompensated.
And you're saying that he could then serve on the land use board?
Well, he wouldn't be. He's a
He's
paid
he was a
employee.
paid employee and on the board.
I think the intent of this is to say if you're in
Uncompensated.
assuming that their
Yeah.
event, that they receive grants in excess of
Yes.
$10,000.
I'm for it. I just want
Right.
to make
He's
sure we
talking about
carved it
uncom-
out correctly.
When
that it's
people aren't
uncompensated.
individually being compensated. That's the clarification. Okay? We good with that? Okay.
Brian, before we continue with the next item, I'd like to bring up, we voted unanimously. I'd like to have two items moved to continued items or request for continuances.
Oh,
Just
the
in case
last two?
anybody's watching online or is in chambers. And this is regarding PB 25-0776, the liquor store prohibition on Lincoln Road. Due to we're looking at the Senate Bill 180 that Nick mentioned earlier. We're asking this item be continued to the September 9th meeting.
Both of them, right?
We can take votes on each one separately.
The last two, sorry. The first one is Planning Board File 250776, liquor store protection on Lincoln because of pending state legislation or in place state legislation. So want to move to, you want to move it
Yes.
to what, September?
To September 9th.
Okay.
Who made the motion on that?
No one yet.
Yeah, I'll make a motion.
Okay.
Wait, I just want to clarify. So the distance separation requirements for tobacco and vape would also be deferred?
Yes.
There's legal reasons, right?
There's a second on.
All right,
Mr.
Keith
Markowitz.
moved. Can we get a second on the motion to continue? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, anyone opposed? Okay, and the second one is Planning Board File 250777, increased distance separation for tobacco and vape stores.
We're asking for a motion on this one to again continue it to the September 9th meeting
For the same reasons.
for the same reasons.
All right, I'll move it.
And just, Michael, in light of the agenda in September, you sure want to move it to September?
Yeah, because we also can move things around in September.
Okay.
At least
All
this
right.
gives us more flexibility in case we have to bring it in
All
September.
right, so Melissa seconded, all in favor? Aye.
Melissa made the motion.
Oh, I'm
motion.
sorry.
We need a
I need a
I
second.
need a second, yeah.
Okay. Scott seconded, all in favor? Aye. Anyone opposed? Okay, both moved. All right, next one is Planning Board File 250771, Land Use Board Consent Agenda Procedures.
This begins on page 19 of the board packages. We've done this a few times, not before planning board, but for other boards. This codifies a procedure where we have an overloaded agenda and we want to have a consent item. In order for an item to qualify as a consent item on the agenda, this would apply to the planning board, design review board, historic preservation board, or board of adjustment. This would be for applications where the applicant has agreed to all the conditions of approval in a draft final order in the staff report. All voting members present at the meeting must agree to forego a presentation or questions to the applicant, and would also require
Hold on, what
limited-
does that mean? That all, so unanimously, the board has to agree to bypass the?
Yes, this would be for a project where there's been no opposition from the board
But it would
members.
still come before us, and we would have to all agree that we can move on. We
Right,
can-
so it's basically the applicant agrees to all the
Right.
conditions of staff, the board members agree with staff conditions, and there's no substantive public comment, and would allow that application to be basically voted on without having a presentation.
Right, all right, so, wait, lawyers always deal with vagaries. When you say not substantial public comment, what does that
Well,
mean?
it could be supporting applications, supporting public comment, or if it didn't require opening up or questions from the
If you
board.
didn't get a lot of opposition, public
Right,
comment, but if you
right.
did, If there was a lot of,
Opposite, we wouldn't put it on the consent agenda if we have opposition.
and that would be in the form of emails from the public?
Or public testimony at the meeting.
Right, but hold on.
Yeah, so if there's
If
no.
you're at the meeting, the whole point is to bypass it. So you're
This,
saying.
no, this, sorry, Brian, this says there is limited public comment on the proposal after the chairperson of the applicable LUB opens the application and requests public comment. So
Right.
you would open it up.
Right. So basically, if a member of the public were at the hearing and wished to speak on the application, or if you'd received correspondence, then that project would not be eligible. That application would not be
Okay.
eligible for consent approval.
Would this still be classified under residents' right to know? Because I feel like that it could impact people who would otherwise not be able to hear something that may impact them, their neighborhood, or them as a resident, or, I just want to make sure
Well,
that.
all the notice requirements still in place,
Right.
right?
Right.
That's what I was
Okay.
going to say, is that
Okay.
the notice requirements would still apply. And if it is a resident's right to know application, then the resident's right to know would apply.
All right, so if we had a bunch of people on Zoom, we'd have to take the public comment. Okay. So
Right,
it's-
exactly,
It's really,
right.
if no one shows up, no one's here to oppose it.
Yeah.
blah, blah, blah. Okay.
You
When
can-
this,
you-
when this has been done before, there's been no public comment. The board members have agreed with all the conditions. The applicant has agreed. This was all done like during the meeting. It wasn't something that, this was done in advance. It was like the day of the meeting. We had a long agenda. This was done like behind the scenes and made public.
All right, but it
Do
would
we
still.
have a certain number of those cases happen? That have?
Look, it's happened like on less than a handful of cases when we have an
Right,
extreme
okay.
overloaded
So,
agenda.
but it would come to the meeting and then we could,
Right.
at that point, is when we decide.
This just,
Okay.
this formalizes a process that we've used
So
in the past
basically,
to
it
make
just,
people aware.
it allows us to pass something without hearing their presentation. Because
Correct.
everything else is
Well, it's
the
just
same.
funny to me because if there's no public people, if there's no one here to speak on it, we usually just do it anyway. You know what I'm saying? It's
10
like,
minutes.
Well,
anyway.
it's more for, so if we have an overloaded agenda
Yeah.
and we don't want to delay more
It
applications.
basically, you're eliminating our comment, really, if the public's not here to oppose it, because if they're here to oppose it, then it doesn't qualify. So
We're
it's really
eliminating the
our comment.
presentation by the applicant.
Right.
Because if everyone agrees to staff and nobody's
Right.
here, they don't have
Okay.
to go through their 10-minute presentation.
Right.
We could just say.
Correct,
Yeah,
okay.
But we wouldn't do this if it was a short agenda. We would do this if
I
it's
get
a
it.
really long agenda.
I get it, okay. I don't see any downside to it, so, all right. Anyone here to speak? Anyone on Zoom?
There's nobody here to speak on the item.
Okay, anyone, you want to move it or anyone have any comment?
I'll move it.
Okay,
I'll
favorably?
second it.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay. And last but not least,
Colors.
Planning Board File 250772, suspension of exterior color review requirements.
So what this ordinance would do is suspend the color requirements for paint permits for a year. Right now, so we did provide in our staff report how the process works currently. There's approved paint colors on the city's website. You can go in with a number. As long as you are proposing a color that complies with the pre-approved colors, it's a pretty quick process. For non-pre-approved paint colors, there's a process for approval, there's a fee, there's a planning inspection afterward to make sure that the color that was painted was what was approved. What this ordinance would do is suspend that requirement for a period of a year, which allow anybody to basically paint whatever color they wanted for that time frame. We're not supportive of this ordinance. We believe that it could result in a lot of negative consequences by somebody painting an outlandish color, which would attract a lot of attention, other businesses trying to compete as well. So we do believe that the current requirements are, protect the character of neighborhoods, and we don't believe that suspending the requirements would be a benefit to the city as a whole. So we are recommending that the planning board transmit this with a negative recommendation.
So if you did want it a special color that was not on, you have to go through a
There's a
There's
process.
a fee, but then it may or may not get approved.
Correct,
And-
yeah.
And would you guys say in general, do you guys get a lot of those?
No, it's very, very
And
rare.
And when they are requested, do you guys generally are in favor, what's the criteria in deciding on these offbeat colors?
We look at the architecture of the building, the relationship with the neighborhood. A color for some neighborhood may not be appropriate for another neighborhood, depending on, what's around it. And generally, when applications have been made, typically to the design review board, they have been approved. But it does then there's this public hearing process, so
Right.
if neighbors are concerned about the color, they can come to the board.
So the few times that we do have people who want to be, stepping out of the pre-approved colors, there's what, like a 3 to 6 months delay into the whole
But
process?
3 months, typically a paint permit, or paint application is not going to be very substantial in terms of the requirements for the DRB
Right.
or
And
for
the fees are
Preservation
low,
Board.
like $112, something like that.
Well,
so
that's for the administrative approval. If they have to go to a public hearing, then it would be several $1,000s.
I mean, is there anyone in public to speak on that?
There's no public comment on this application online?
I just think a city like Miami that has, this is a big, important part of the architecture. I think it's a little crazy that we're giving a wild card for everyone to go through a different color. So I'm on your side.
I do have a question. There are pre-approved colors already.
Right.
And so what I'm reading is that, commonly used terms, neon, fluorescent, day glow, iridescent, and similar terms are not permitted to the exterior. And also, I mean, if you've got, I remember when we were first looking at buying here, there were, I think it was the original color palette that, and you were only allowed to choose from those colors. Is that not still in existence?
An expanded color chart.
So if what, I don't see anything in here that says that that it's saying that you cannot change, you cannot have things like, your house painted,
And this doesn't affect single-family homes.
okay. Okay.
What's the purpose behind it? Is it
Yeah,
to
I'm-
encourage people to maintain their buildings and keep them
Right.
newly painted?
The purpose would be to allow somebody who maybe want to paint their building in a color that we couldn't approve, paint it without going through a review process.
That's great.
But it would also encourage property owners to repaint and maintain, which was I think
Well,
what,
yeah, that's
where
what
you
I
were
thought.
going.
And I mean, to that end, I'm not in favor of this. What I'd like to see is that regardless if it's a pre-approved color or a non-pre-approved color, the city, follows the process that you have for pre-approved colors, where there's basically no permit, no fees, or I'm sorry, no fees for inspections or if I read permit fee on there. In other words, we want to encourage someone to paint their building.
Right.
If it's a pre-approved color, fine. If not, as long as it's not any darker, I mean, that's however you phrase it in here, as long as it's less intense than some, the city
that-
should
that's
say,
the-
here, go ahead and paint it.
That requires a review, though. That's why it does require the extra level of review for us to verify.
That's fine, I'm still good with that, but I mean, for the purpose of encouraging people to paint their buildings, there shouldn't be fees for that. It should be a quick thing, a quick review, and
I mean, I might be wrong, but I don't think you need to ask for a permit if you're repainting your building the same color. If you're just doing it, you would not have to go through a permit if I'm keeping the same color and I'm just repainting my building.
If you are doing like stucco work and repair work, then you would need to get a permit.
You would need a permit,
Yes.
even though you're staying with the same color. But it's a
Yes.
fast-forward process if
Right.
you're a part of the pre-approved.
It's
stage.
only if you want to do
Painting
something
needs
that's
permits.
outlandish, would.
Right, so I think we're pretty
Yeah.
much covered on that.
permit's fine. It's just, I'm trying to make it, no fees. Someone should
No
go in and say, here's the color. The city looks, oh, it's lighter than this pre-approved color. Fine, here you go. Here's your permit. You're out. Go paint your building. That's, I
Plus,
mean,
there is staff involved, so with the
Yeah,
pre-approved,
staff.
there's
Well,
not, but you have to, there is a cost. There's a lot of buildings, so there is a cost. So if the applicant's not paying it, somebody else is paying it, the residents are paying it,
And
so.
I mean, but it's a nominal
Minimum,
fee.
right.
It's nothing. It's $100 and some, so. It's not like it's an expensive fee.
I'm just
And
trying to
I
look
I
at,
get it, but if you're repainting your house, putting in an extra $100 for the permit is not what's gonna.
I'm just trying to make it as easy as
Right. Well,
possible.
the process, I think the main thing is the time, because,
You're right. If
So
it's a nominal fee.
Right, no, it's a nominal fee, but I think it's it's,
So I spoke
It should
earlier,
be
so we do enforce the pallet for single-family homes, just not the permit.
okay. Oh, there you go. All right.
All right, any other comment? So want to move it?
I'll move it,
With a negative.
let's see, so I'm
In favor?
on favorable recommendation on this one.
Okay, can I get a second?
I'll second negative
Okay.
recommendation.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Anyone
Aye.
opposed? Okay. That was quick and easy. You
Said
said
just
under
about
2
an hour,
hours.
so,
You did it.
Now, just prepare next in September, we're gonna be here long. long time. So,
Bring the sweaters.
Yeah, we do have a long agenda for September 9th, which is the next
yeah,
meeting.
we get
do it-
lunch.
I'd like to earn my money.
So if anybody
right.
cannot make the September 9th meeting, please let me know, because we do anticipate having a very long agenda.
Anyone not going to be here?
As of right now, I have a trial, but
You'll settle. All right, we're
September
adjourned.
9th.
Everyone have a great August.